Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lessons from Leaders podcast. I am very excited about today's episode. We have Anand Shekhar on, who is the co-founder and CEO at ClaraLearn. And today, we're going to get into the weeds of what it's like in the early days of building a startup and getting your company off the ground. So, Anand, thank you so much for joining me, man.
My pleasure, Jake.
Yeah. So to kick this off, man, I wanted to kind of hear your journey to this point because every founder, every president, CEO, it's always a different route to how you got here. So for you, I would love to hear in your own words, how your career took you to this point to be a co-founder, to be a CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here and sort of give me a chance to tell my story. Um, my background has been in software technology. Born and brought up in India. Lived in the US for a couple of years, and then currently living in Canada. I was always more curious and sort of problem solving is what I was more uh, attached to. So anything I do, I would used to love solving problems, right? So I feel that core liking has always been there inside, and that's one of the traits I feel any founder would typically have, right? So I mean, I did my engineering back home in India around 2010, and post engineering. In fact, I wanted to sort of get into the venture building and entrepreneurship right away, but due to various reasons, I was like, okay, let's first get some experience, and then maybe I'll get into building, right? But then it took me more than 15 years to actually then get to my dream of building something. But what I did for sure is like over the period of like that 15 years, I tried to put myself in various different positions so that I can acquire those skills, right? So I even though I started as a software engineer and I worked with Deloitte Consulting, where my most of my career has been in public sector, health and human services. So I started there as a software engineer, but then I moved into roles like um, uh, sort of leading a testing team or getting into functional roles, working with clients to take the requirements, managing the sort of operations of a certain project, and various different roles in any large scale project that you could have to do with software delivery, right? So right from designing, developing to implementing and managing customer, the whole life cycle, I wanted to sort of live through it. They say, right, like the grass is always greener on the other side. So if you are from the software development world, you would know, like, especially like if you are coming from the last decade, you would know that development team will be like, hey, the testing team doesn't test well, and testing team will be like, hey, the team doesn't do good. Development team will be like, hey, the functional team is not that great, and vice versa. So I lived in each of those and try to understand like where are they coming from, so that I could like get into a spot where if I have to build my own venture, I can understand each one's perspective and be able to drive in the right direction, right? So that was my journey, and then that was, I would say, the mindset that I sort of lived through. And when I moved to Canada around 2023, I was trying few ideas, and I also met my co-founder, who's also my cousin brother in Canada. And when we started talking about a certain problem, which is now Clarelyn is trying to solve for, we started like, yeah, heck yes, like let's go about building it. And we sort of registered that company in 2025. And right now we are full time operating it. So he's taking a lead from the technology as well as product standpoint. I'm taking a lead from operation strategy and vision standpoint. And of course, like both of us are taking a lead from both the perspectives, but I'm more focused in as a from a role of a CEO. He's more focused from a role of a CTO and a product.
Yeah. Yeah. And to the point of the functional development team and everything, I had my fair share of that on my first project at Accenture. So it's it's so true, man. It's always the back and forth. So props to you for being in every single, one in all of this. Um, but yeah, man, it sounds like you're like the stages. that you're in, like as you're building a startup, it's like, here's the problem. I've seen the problem. I've witnessed the problem. All right. Now we start to talk to people. What do you need? What could solve this? And then you start to build, go to market, all that. So as you're having all these conversations right now, are people like validating the idea that you thought you had and the problem you were trying to solve? Are people kind of coming to you and saying, actually, maybe you should think about it more like this? Or what has all that process been for y'all?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's very true that any product needs to find its market, and the market shapes the product. The product doesn't shape the market in a way, unless you are Steve Jobs, or sort of building something which is like way out of the box and the world has never seen that, right? So you can approach that way. But like what I mean, my limited experience with entrepreneurship and what I have been learning, if I have to write down one single point, right? It's like just go with one small idea. Like first figure out like if there is a space, if you know there is a problem, go with a very small set of solution. And once you go there, the market will exactly tell you where you want to go, where you should be going, what's the problem, and then you go behind in solving that, right? So to answer your question, yes, we have been in that journey, and then we sort of build our own prototype MVP. We reached out, and then based on our conversations through various different stakeholders or clients, as well as customers, people using it, it shaped our product altogether. It we created a niche altogether, and we understood like, okay, here's where our large share is, the whole market is. Here's where I want to start with, and here's where I'll sort of go behind each of these smaller problems and then capture the larger market, right? So right now we are at that stage where we have found our niche, we have found our wedge, is what we want to call, or a beachhead, or whatever you want to say. And now we are trying to solve for that, knowing that what we are trying to solve for it has a huge potential in a larger scale. It has a larger market where we could add value, but we are starting from a smaller piece.
Right. And who have you felt like has been maybe the quote unquote buyer? Like I'm sure you're going in and offering
Correct.
everything for free and doing all
Correct.
that. But
Correct.
who have you identified as the buyer, and what have you found the problem that you're trying to solve now?
Correct. So I'll tell you first the premise of what we are trying to build, and then I can speak about the buyer and the market and so on, right? So our premise is essentially, and our thesis is this, that as the token capital, right, increases for every enterprise. So and we are more into the enterprises space, B2B space. So as the token capital increases for every enterprise, the amount of spend for the human capital, meaning the humans working in an enterprise, will exponentially increase when you compare it to the earlier years. And the reason for that is essentially because of the collaboration between technology and humans, right? So if you again, like you have a consulting background as well, you would know like most of the projects, like especially software projects or digital transformation, have not necessarily failed because of a technology problem. It has failed because of a change management and a human capital problem, right? So it takes us as humans to be able to consume information, digest it, live with that information, and proceed, right? But the pace at which AI is going versus the pace at which each of the humans are able to like consume and be able to like work with these systems, it's taking that gap is huge. So we need to focus on both sides. Yes, as enterprises focus on token capital, it's also important to focus on the human capital. So that's the premise. Now how does Clara Learn sort of come into play over here is we have a basic standard framework which we call as discover, explore, and retain, and that sits across verticals. So our platform sort of offers to universities, enterprises, educational institutions, government board, workforce board, right? And what we try to do is help a professional, regardless of where they sit in these space, help them discover their true potential, basically their skills, tie it with the market using our agentic framework, trying to say, okay, like you have 10 different skills. Now, where is this skill trajectory going? Is it going up or is it going down? How is it? And based on all of those, identify like, okay, within the organization, right now, what's your growth story? Where can you go? right? That's one. Second, if you're outside the enterprise, outside the workforce, then today you have a certain level of skills and experience. What are the various different opportunities, not jobs, but opportunities that you can get into? That's discover. Once you know that, then you can explore. Meaning, now that you know that, okay, let's say I did a corporate law degree. Now, if I did that, there are various different avenues that I can get into, right? Most of the time, what happens is like, just because like few of your friends might be doing something, or what market currently offers you, you just pick that up and that becomes your career trajectory, right? But what if
Mhm.
you have an opportunity where you can actually clearly break down on what do you truly want, not what market gives you. What do you truly want, right? Put some thought around it and then get some help around it. That's what Clavland does. And how can you explore going into various different directions, saying that, okay, now I know here's where I want to go. Now give me a trajectory of how do I go about it. So explore is what Clavland does. Again, whether you are in the workforce or we are outside the workforce, it helps you do that. And lastly, I think that's our USP, is the retention part. So you discovered yourself, you know where you want to go through explore, where you thrive. And retention is about retention of knowledge, essentially. So we consume so much of information. There's like, if I want to learn something with AI, there might be like a 1 hour video, right? If I go through that 1 hour video, how much of that information have I actually retained in my head is questionable. So the science says that only 10% of what you might have consumed, you might retain in the next 30 days, right? That too, if you engage with that information, otherwise you won't be able to, right? So Clarillon sort of try to directly tackle that problem of retention, right? Where it's able to understand what are the various different courses or content or learning material that you want to do, has micro assessments that help you. So our thesis is assessment as learning, right? So assessment is not just to like see what your knowledge is, but assessment itself is a way by which you engage with that content, and you are able to store it in your head, your memory. You are able to encapsulate, right? So that's another algorithm that we have built, and it's component based, it's agentic. So we are able to then put ourselves into various different industries, various different sector, but solving the same problem for that professional across, right? So I'll take a pause. Let me know. I know it was a lengthy answer, but we can then peel it one by one.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And for y'all right now, as you're kicking off these conversations and you're trying to validate the problem and trying to understand it, what are they coming back to you and saying, gosh, we are just frustrated with this. We're dealing with this. What are you hearing from them, like in terms of the problems they're facing?
Correct. So there are a couple of problems. One is so it depends on like who is your buyer right now. So we have two different verticals that we are currently focused on. One is university, and the other is we are currently working with in the aviation sector for the specific aerodrome officials to be compliant. Right. So compliance is an industry that we are focused on as such, and right now in the aviation sector. Right. So one of the problems that they have had is about most of the platforms currently focus on checkbox, or like, have you done the course or not, right? But sure, like you have done the course, now how do I know whether you have retained that information or not? So that's what Cloudlearn is trying to solve for. That's one. Second, most of the compliance based industries also audit needs to be audit ready, right? So like just doing a course does not tell you that this individual is now has the necessary skill set and knowledge to be able to do it, right? So they end up they have to do a separate what do you call, coaching done from a different vendor or learning provider. Even after those learning provider do that training, they still have to like now manually build these documents, reports and everything to be able to do it. So it's a time consuming process. It doesn't necessarily give you what exactly is required, so it just becomes a formality, right? So what we are trying to do is like take away that formality and sort of give the ability for both the one who is trying to get trained a very elevated experience, where it helps them actually retain that information, increase their speed of learning, makes it easy, as well as the enterprise for whom the training is happening, they get like audit ready records. They know where their talent sits. They know how they can move around within the organization. For the training providers, it helps them like smoothen the process. It sort of reduce their operational cost, increase their gross margin. It gives them the ability to scale, right? Because like if you have to, like, let's say, train 20 people, and then your most of your time goes just in assembling information and then collecting the notes and everything. And even after that, you might not necessarily be able to do a great job at that. What Clarendon helps does is like streamline all of those and helps them get to what they need, right? With, of course, the use of technology. So um, that's where we are, and that's where sort of this platform is being appreciated in that space with our client and customers and stakeholders that we are working with, where we are trying to solve that problem. And that problem now is not only with aviation. That problem is any compliance industry would have that problem. Any industry that requires coaching, training has that problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anybody who's, probably kicking off a venture or trying to build something themselves and, they think they've found a problem that's worth solving and they think they, can build a product around it and they're starting to have these conversations, what would you tell them from everything that you learned in all your conversations? Um, how do you ask the right questions, or
Mm,
what do you feel you really need to learn in a
mm,
meeting, or even how to get people excited to even have a
mm,
conversation with you in the first place?
mm.
Because even that
Yeah.
can be pretty hard at first.
Yeah, totally. Um, I'll go to the fundamentals of business for that matter, right? So, and I'll tell myself, like, I wanted to start a business. I have like around 15, 16 years of experience now building, right? But still, we get into that loophole, or not loophole, the rabbit hole of like going around doing stuff in a certain way, and we forget the fundamental principles, right? So to build a fundamental business which is sustainable, there are only three things, right? Value creation, value delivery, that you need to focus on. And from the end of like, why would a buyer, let's say you are a buyer, why would you buy something from me? End of the day, it's about your progress. So if I'm so what you are basically hiring my product to be able to make some progress for you, right? So if there is no progress that is happening for you, then you're not going to buy. So it's important to understand like what does progress mean to you as a buyer. And there are essentially three or four elements in that progress, and triggers that sort of tell you that your progress is happening or not, right? So one trigger is it something that is causing a risk for you? Like whatever you're doing right now, is there a certain imminent risk that if you do not hire a certain product, it will sort of derail your progress? That's one. Second, is that something where it sort of impedes your growth, right? So meaning it's taking you down. Then you would need that, you will hire that product. Or if you see there is an opportunity that might put you in a spot ahead of your competitor or a differentiator, that's where you'll buy. So it's about understanding what is it that you are trying to give to your buyer that is helping with their progress. So that's one I would want to start with. Like, what is it that I want to provide? Second aspect is like also knowing, like, doing our internal research and market research, right? So I might come up with a solution that I feel, or a problem statement saying, okay, this is the problem. In my head, I'll be like, okay, this is going to change the world. But it might very well be possible that that has nothing to do in the real world, right? So as soon as you start talking, the approach that I typically like to take is not necessarily talk about the solution, or like, okay, we are going to do this, or what we do this. It's end of the day, it's job to be done, right? Like, what does this individual do in this market, in this space? If they just call out their day to day, and then just call out like what are the challenges that comes out day to day, it automatically then gives that signal. And those signals are like, is it sort of, are there any risks, or are there any growth opportunities, or is there anything that is sort of, is there a pain that is causing them? So you take those signals, and then based on that, you build your product, saying, okay, here's how I solve your pain, here's how I am trying to mitigate your risk, and here's how I am giving you opportunity. So if you give all these three, then you are basically helping them make that progress. And then essentially the point now comes down to those strategic aspects, like about go to market, right? Is that individual the one who has the authority to take calls? Is that individual, does that individual has the right information? Do they have? And then there are procurement related aspects. If comes to an enterprise, are you ready with that? What's your team? So all those things sort of unlock later on. All those problems for selling unlock later on, but first thing is like, are you solving that problem or not? Once you know that space, then things become easier, and then those are more tactical and strategic moves that you need to make to get in.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, it's so true, the fundamentals, because I mean, a lot of people starting out, and myself included, like you just get so excited. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going out, I'm going to get to provide this product or this service. And you start to see like the potentials and this go to market strategy and this, and you start to lose sight where it's like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
I need to just customer success, ask questions. How are you doing? How is this going? And I compare it to athletics, like back when I was competing, where you get super excited about the
Yeah.
competition. But if you haven't slept 9, 10 hours, not gone out, done all your rehab, trained hard, studied film, if you haven't done that, you're not going to have results. So I've started to try to take that approach too, where it's, okay, are we delivering? Let me get with my clients. Like, how is this going for you? And then kicking off something new. What are your problems? Just obsess, obsess, obsess. So, I mean, I think that's an amazing reminder for everybody, because there's always the bells and whistles and like getting excited about things. But, and how's that been for, these client conversations where you're getting in and you're really trying to dig into, you know, how can I provide value? Like, how has it been received? What do these conversations continue to look like? Are they introducing you to other people? And how have you gotten more conversations? How has all that been?
Yeah, totally. I think I feel like there are two aspects to this, like in the whole GTM story. One is your marketing, and then there's your sales, right? So you need to create a brand, that's for sure. Like it's important to create a brand. It's important to like put yourself out there, tell your story, what is you're trying to build, so that the more the inbound, the more the pull, the more it's going to stay, right? And then you also do your outbound where you just reach out. So based on that, first you try to build that the narrative that is required to set the foundation. But coming to your point about like how when you deal with those customers, how do you get references? I think it's important to build that trust, right? And trust building takes time. It doesn't happen in a day, right? So our mentality, like myself, my co-founder, we both have like, and we keep repeating ourselves that we want to focus on basically doing and not the outcome, right? So meaning we do our best, like we give 110, 20%, and then outcome, if it has to come, it will come. If it doesn't, we keep doing, right? So all we need to worry about is how much do we have that capacity to just keep doing. We focus on that part, and then we plan for it, saying, okay, can I keep doing for the next 6 months? I don't want to worry about that. Would that customer come in? And I wouldn't want to get desperate about they come or not, right? They will eventually come. If I'm in the right space and if I'm solving the right problem, they will eventually come. And I would need to be respectable to be able to give that time they need to build that trust, right? So I think it's a patience game. I feel like entrepreneurship is the patience game, especially if you want to build. We are not here to just like build something in 2 years, sell the company and move out. We want to build a company that is consequential, which is legendary. It stays and it creates an impact in the world and the society, right? So build, and especially to build something like that, you need to have that patience. You need to be grounded, is what we feel.
Yeah, for sure, man. And Anand, I already know a few people who I'm going to send this episode to who are kicking things off and, maybe trying to understand what the problem is and how to even start. So I think it's just been an amazing reminder to everybody, an amazing, how to in your journey. Um, but so as you move forward, where can people find you? What can they, be on the lookout for everything that y'all are building?
Yeah, absolutely. Myself and my co-founder brother Ram, without whom this company would not exist. So he sort of like put in his like sweat and blood to build the system. So we both are available in LinkedIn, active on LinkedIn, as well as I can give you my email ID and my co-founder's email ID as well. Feel free to reach out. I personally love to like talk to anyone, especially someone who's trying to build something. In fact, I had like blocked an hour of my calendar for most of the time, where anyone who wants to learn programming, anyone who learns to like know anything about or just chat, they can just set up time and converse, right? So very open to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. Awesome. Well, appreciate you taking the time, and we'll be in touch, and I already know who I'm going to send this to. So really
Awesome.
appreciate you.
Thank you, Jake, for taking your time. Have a good one.
All right, everybody.